Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre, and yes, I will say it with complete confidence, will be Canada's next great Prime Minister.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Question Period Canada. You recognize Larry Brock, the man making the very bold prediction from the intro? He's a lot to watch, guys, all the time, on fire in committee. These are some of the videos that we focus on. This committee stuff, guys, like and subscribe. You'll enjoy it. You probably don't see this side of politics very often. We cover it here. Let's take a closer look at Larry Brock. Point of order. It gets nuts in committee every time. We've got a couple of villains that make appearances in this one. Let's take a look. Larry Brock is a man on fire.
Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre, and yes, I will say it with complete confidence, will be Canada's next great Prime Minister. I start by sharing the initial commentary from my colleague, Mr. Keurig. Just how disappointed that he was to hear the commentary from Ms. Khalid in terms of the framing of her motion, and how shocked she was and how disturbed she was. You know, the hypocrisy from that member, and quite frankly the entire Liberal bench on these two issues is just astounding. The lengths they will go to try to change the channel on where public opinion is with the Liberal Party of Canada and their leader, Justin Trudeau. It really speaks to how low they have sunk and the attempts that they will do and try to fearmonger, to frighten and scare Canadians. Pretty much the entire playbook of the Liberal Party of Canada since Justin Trudeau became leader of the party, literally in 2013. It was all about scaremongering. Even before 2013, one can make the argument, going back to the 2004 and 2006 election under PM Martin and Chrétien, the lengths by which they will go to try to paint any leader of the Conservative Party of Canada as a boogeyman, and that Canadians ought to be fearful that there is somehow a hidden agenda, that they will say one thing and quite frankly do another, which really is the playbook of Justin Trudeau and has been since he formed government in 2015. But it's more pronounced now because, let's face it, they're down 20-plus points in the polls. They have been down for well over a year.
Chair.
Go ahead on your point of order.
Just talking about relevance, I'd encourage the member to come back to the topic at hand.
Go ahead,
And
Mr.
relevance
Brock.
is very subjective. As I telegraphed to the party, my speaking remarks are at least 2 hours long. So I will get to relevant points of Ms. Khalid's motion in due course.
Mr. Brock has the floor.
I got you. I apologize.
Go ahead, Mr. Brock. And I'm not going to accept any interruptions here. We've talked about this many times. Relevance is subjective. Mr. Brock will get to his points and make his points in an appropriate manner, and I don't want any interruptions unless it's related to the actual standing orders, and you can cite those. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
So gang, that's Iqra Khalid. She's an MP, Liberal MP, always a thorn in the side of these committee meetings. Anyhow, here's a very quick look at her, but then we're going to get back to Larry Brock, because these committee meetings, I do want you to like and subscribe. They're always wild, guys. People don't see this side of Canadian politics. It's fun in a way.
A good part of the country agrees. Now, don't bring me into this debate with these these frivolous points of order on tone, particularly when you take issue with the word Mr. Barrett used, and then use it yourself to describe his actions, thereby reinforcing the point it is accurate. Mr. Barrett, you have the floor.
Chair?
Is it a point of order, Ms. Khalid?
Yes, Chair. Again, on the same point of order on decorum,
He ruled
I would
on it.
appreciate
He ruled on
if
it.
the chair, I'm talking about a different person now, if the chair himself could be a little bit more nonpartisan in how he conducts
Okay,
our
Ms.
committee.
Khalid, don't bring me into your bun fights, and I will be nonpartisan and conduct the meeting. You're going to continue to disrupt opposition members from asking questions, then I will get involved and make a ruling, as is my job. I'm not just a potted plant up here that's going to watch the clock. But as you get more political and try to cut opposition members from asking legitimate committee questions, I will reinforce their rights as members to ask it. Mr. Barrett, you have the floor.
Our leader had been elected, and there has been a consistent drive to water down and eliminate that Liberal support. And it's obviously must be extremely disappointing to many longstanding members of the Liberal Party of Canada. It's not surprising that we have a number of ministers who've decided not to run for re-election. We have a number of MPs deciding not to run for re-election. There is a phrase that I'm not going to use, but it's clear that they too look at the polls and they know that public opinion is changing. It's changing for a number of reasons, Mr. Chair. There's always, and always has been, a shelf life for any political party. That applies to the Liberal Party, that applies to the Conservative Party. People get tired of being promised a number of things pre-election merely to buy a vote, and then to be profoundly disappointed when the Prime Minister of the day does not deliver. And that's precisely what's happening with Justin Trudeau. I'm sure he and the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, and the entire Finance Department, if not the entire Liberal bench, thought that the spring budget would finally end some negativity towards their economic policies, that they were going to make it fairer for a number of generations, that it wasn't strictly about the middle class. Now it's fairness for multiple generations. But what are we seeing in the budget? We're seeing the same worn-out talking points that Justin Trudeau promised Canadians in 2015 and completely has not delivered on, particularly in the area, in my view, of public safety. And I'm going to get to relevant points in due course. But it's just indicative, emblematic of why this party and its members are just so desperate to find something other than to take a look at their track record. The budget has fallen flat on its face. One could have made the argument that the Prime Minister was going to drop the writ 2 or 3 weeks ago with his cross-country tour and all his ministers following along and delivering all these little goodies as to what they can expect from the budget. But nothing has moved the channel because Canadians are wise and Canadians are intelligent. And they have finally realized that this Prime Minister, who they thought was going to conduct governance so much more differently. Let's all remember his famous words in 2015, how he would do politics different, that his administration would be known as the most transparent, accountable, and responsible government this country has ever seen. But then you take a look at everything that has transpired. Their non-willingness to provide documents at committee, instructing their members to filibuster when it comes to exposing elements of corruption and unethical behavior. The list goes on and on and on. I could spend hours doing a deep dive, just taking a look at the number of scandals that has rocked Justin Trudeau and members of his cabinet, members of his backbench, literally since 2015. Canadians are wise individuals, Mr. Chair, and they remember these things. So with all the good efforts that the Liberal members of this committee are trying to do now, trying to scare Canadians and fearmonger, in my view, is going to fall flat on its face. Let's take, for instance, this whole concept of the scariness of the notwithstanding clause. The notwithstanding clause, surprise, surprise, introduced by Justin's father himself, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, well over 40 years ago. And that notwithstanding clause in the last 40 plus years has not been amended. It has been in the books for a very long time. And while no federal government has exercised its use, does not necessarily mean, in fact, I'll say definitively, does not mean that it's inappropriate to use it in the future. We know that some provincial premiers have used it. You know, and where was the backlash from Justin Trudeau? Well, I guess there was a little bit of backlash. He talked a good game, but he didn't do anything about it. When Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, talked about it, when the Premier of Quebec talked about it. This is something that is law in this country. And for all the non-lawyers on the Liberal bench, I invite them all to take the time, it'll take you less than 2 minutes, to actually read Section 33 of the Charter. That when used, clearly, and I'm just paraphrasing it, when used, it's not permanent. It's reviewable at 5 years. So when we take a look at the comments recently made by our leader, these are comments, Mr. Chair, that have not changed or been altered in any which way from the first moment that he talked about the applicable use of the notwithstanding clause. The notwithstanding clause, despite the best efforts of Ms. Khalid to try to open up the floodgates and widen the potential abuse of the notwithstanding clause to scare Canadians, to be fearful of the use of that clause, because now it might be applied to reproductive rights, is an absolute joke. And it's offensive, because she knows full well, as does every member of that Liberal bench, where the Conservative Party of Canada stands on that issue. Dead stop. No further discussion needed. But that won't stop the Liberals. That will not stop them. They will continue to scare Canadians into believing that Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre, and yes, I will say it with complete confidence, will be Canada's next great Prime Minister.
So gang, what do you think? Larry Brock, right? He's fun to watch for sure. Khalid is an issue all the time in these committee meetings. You've got to come and join the channel, not join the channel, but subscribe, like, share, get notified, all that fun stuff. We do a live program here every day as well with question period, or if it's not there on that day, we cover some live stuff and it's fun. Come and join the chat room, the community, it's great. But these committee meetings, that's another reason to check out the channel. That's all I'm saying. I'm Aaron, this is Question Period Canada. Like, subscribe, do all that funny stuff. It's a great time here. Come and join us. All right, take care. Check out next video. It might be about committee. It might be about something else. Canadian federal politics, learning and sharing that with you right here. Catch you next video.